All right, on today's episode, I want to welcome Allison Larsen. We met at Date with Destiny in Florida. Rock Thomas introduced us, and anytime Rock introduces me to somebody, I always pay attention because he's got pretty good taste. So we got to talking. You're a coach, you run a mastermind group, you run a speakers coalition, you're on TV, radio. You wrote a book called Soul Intuition, which we're going to get into a little bit more. And I want you to share anything that I missed, Allison. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I really appreciate that. I have been blessed to have some amazing accomplishments in my life. I went from basically being a full-time stay-at-home mom and part-time entrepreneur to being able to reach and impact the world practically overnight. So it was a crazy ride, but it was really fun. And a couple of things you may not know about me, my two loves are my 4 children and chocolate. So I'm just going to throw that out there right at the beginning.
I literally just had a piece of chocolate before we got on, so that's good to know. And so let's talk about how you kind of got into personal development. So you said you went from being a stay-at-home mom, and then now you're impacting the world. So was that what was the transition there, and how did you start to develop listening to that inner voice of yours?
Thank you so much. Well, I really appreciate that. Well, a lot of things went into that, but I did remember one specific moment in time where I was in my bedroom. I had just woken up, and as I woke up, I just thought there has to be something more. I just had this overwhelming feeling that I had more to offer the world, that I had a greater impact to make, and I felt like the world's best kept secret. And I remember that morning as I woke up and got out of bed, just making this commitment and thinking, I want to wake up every morning feeling like I've made a difference in the world, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. And I remember from that moment forward, just going to continue on my self-development path and listening to my intuition about hiring mentors and coaches and taking steps forward to reach and impact the world. And it's crazy because I lived in a town of less than 5,000 people. Like I said, I was a full-time stay-at-home mom, a part-time entrepreneur, and I never thought that I would be able to have a reach of millions of people. But in 9 short months, I went from a reach of 2,000 people a month to about 2 million people per month. So it can be done. I'm here to tell you, if you put your mind to it, listen to your intuition, absolutely can be done.
That's a pretty rapid rise. So I'm sure our listeners would love to hear more about that. But first, so you said you got into, finding mentors and learning from them. Who were some of the people that you started to learn from, and what were your experiences with them?
Oh my goodness. Well, I remember it, and I think it has a lot to do with intuition, because one mentor could be right for one person, but not for another person. So it's all about listening to your intuition. But I remember a pivotal moment in time that shifted or changed my life. And that was, I'd gotten an email. I had my part-time business. I had an online mentoring group. And I got an email inviting me to a mastermind the next day for this online mentoring group. And I didn't really know a ton about the mastermind or the person that was going to be there. And it was 5 hours away from my house. It was the next day. I had plans, but I just knew that I needed to be at that mastermind. So I rearranged all my plans. I ended up driving down. I got there at 1 in the morning. The mastermind started at 7 a.m. the next day. But from that mastermind, I ended up hiring a coach and mentor that really helped me step into the limelight and make some really amazing connections. And along the way, I've had several coaches and mentors, but it's always the same thing. It's about listening to my gut feeling. Who do I need to work with? And then just following through with that and stepping forward with it.
So we're going to get into listening to your gut in just a moment. But first I want to know, you're starting to learn from these mentors. Are you just learning strategy, or are you growing yourself? Is it the spiritual growth that you're going through that's helping you propel, or is it just learning some basic strategies?
Yeah, well, that's a really great question. At this point, I'd already done a lot of personal development work. I'd spent about a decade, just kind of gradually getting into it, but tearing down those walls around my heart and working on different things and really reshaping and redefining myself. And I'd taken these little components of what I was learning, and I was putting them into my small business that I was doing, and I was just noticing these massive results. And so I remember there came a point when I thought, after attending the same seminar for the 7th time in a row. I remember that moment. I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, when am I going to stop being the teacher? I mean, stop being the student and start being the teacher. And that's when I decided it was time to step forward. So at this particular time, these were mentors and coaches that I was looking for just to help me get this message out to the world, to help me take the things that I had learned and share them with everybody.
Yeah, so let's get into that. We all kind of, we start learning from other people and we take their message. And then after we teach their message a little bit, we're like, wait a second, like this is now my message. I shaped it. I created it in a new way, created new patterns, new ways of teaching it. So what's your kind of calling card in what you teach?
Yeah, so I specialize in intuition. So my book's Soul Intuition, my brand's Soul Intuition. And then of course, when I had all of my success, I felt so extremely blessed to go from basically the stay-at-home mom in a small town in Idaho to reaching so many people that I also started the Speakers Coalition, where I help people that are intuitive speakers and that are inspirational speakers come together in a community so that they can have the same opportunities that I had, and connections and learning and growing and being able to impact and reach the world.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm a big believer in synchronicities, and when you're in the right state, things just come together in the right way. And when you can follow your intuition, you connect to that, right? And so it's like a shortcut when you learn how to follow that. So give us a few ways that we can start to understand how to tap into our intuition.
Oh my gosh. Well, write this down for sure, because this is really, really important. So the first thing to recognize with intuition, whether you're wanting to grow your business or you're wanting to have greater connections and deeper connections with your kids, or you're wanting to make more money, whatever it is that you want in your life, you first have to know what it is you want. So intention fuels intuition. Let me say that one more time. Intention fuels intuition. And let me give you an example of this. You've probably heard of Alice in Wonderland. It was the book written by Lewis Carroll. And then of course, Disney made a movie out of it. There's several spin-offs about it, but there's this point in the book where Alice is going through Wonderland. Of course, she's never been there before. And as she's traveling down the road forks. And she's trying to decide if she should go to the right or the left. Well, fortunately, as she's trying to decide, the Cheshire Cat appears. And she asks him, because she knows he's lived there a long time. He knows the whole place. He says, well, she says, should I go to the right or the left? And he said, that depends on where you want to end up. And she said, I don't know. He said, then it doesn't matter which road you take. And it's so often like that with our intuition, that gut feeling, that voice inside of us. Some people that are religious call it, that spirit that we hear, that inspirational God's voice, whatever you want to call it. That direction cannot come unless we know what we want our final outcome to be. So what is it that you want in your life? And there's big intentions, like maybe you want to reach 1 million people, right? You want to reach 1 million people. That's your intention. So that when you come to these decisions or these pivotal points in your life where you can either make a decision to do A or B, which road you want to take based on that final outcome of reaching 1 million people. But there's also these small little daily intentions that we can set. These day-to-day things that if we just wake up in the morning and we say, okay, our intention for today is blank, then when those different opportunities present themselves, we'll recognize which ones to take and what we should do. So setting intentions daily and then also having bigger goals or intentions is really, really important to being able to fuel that intuition.
Wow, so much to unpack there. So I think that alone was worth this interview, right? And even if you don't believe in, which I'm a big believer in our soul and our spirit communicating through us, but even if you don't believe it, when you set an intention with your emotions, it creates a subconscious drive, right? You tune your reticular activating system. So even if it's a secular perspective, it still works that way, right?
Absolutely. And if you want to go one step deeper, I don't know, do you want to deep dive?
Yeah, let's go. Of course, the deeper the better.
So here's the other secret. So if intention fuels intuition, every good intention starts with a good question. And every good intention starts with a good question. So if you want to figure out what that intention should be for the day or for your year or for your 3 months, whatever you're setting, figure out what question to ask. So for example, for my daily intentions, when I go to bed the night before, I ask a question. So the question may be, how can I have a deeper connection with my daughter? Or my question may be, how can I get more clients or reach more people in my business? I just write down that question and I leave it alone. Now, all night, guess what happens?
Starts working.
Right, your subconscious starts working on that question. And it's from the subconscious place, it's from that higher self and source that we get those answers. So when I wake up in the morning, within 5 minutes, I've written this question down on a piece of paper by my bed. I wake up and I write down the first 3 action steps that come to my mind. And sometimes they make no sense. Like maybe my question is, how can I get more clients in my business? And my number 1 is take a bath. Number 2 is call a certain person. And number 3 is to do something on my website. And I think, well, why would take a bath have to do with getting more clients? But I don't judge, and I do it. And what I've learned is that my body just knows, my subconscious knows what I need. And for example, that one time I wrote down take a bath, I recognized as I was taking that bath, I was totally coming from a place of stress because I've been lacking in self-care. And as I took that bath, as I took a moment to reflect, I was able to come from this calm, centered space where I was so much more creative and inspired throughout the rest of the day. So again, just before you go to bed, write down a question, then 5 minutes of waking up, write down 3 action steps for the day. And that's how you live intentionally. That question becomes your intention. And then those action steps become that action that will be able to propel you forward.
That's beautiful. And you know, the quality of our questions really determines the quality of our life. And I talk about, you know, we're like a ship, and our subconscious mind is the ship and our conscious mind is the rudder. And if we're not controlling that rudder, you know, it's such a small part of it. But the way that we control the ship is by asking questions. And that's one of the things we can do with our conscious mind. Most everything else is controlled by the subconscious. So we can ask questions, and that will guide our ship in the right direction, right?
Well, and you and I learned at Date with Destiny that if you ask the wrong questions, then you're going to get the answers you don't want, like, oh, why am I such a loser? Or how come I don't have any clients? You ask those kind of questions and your mind's going to validate. It's going to look for answers that you like, why are you such a loser? Or why don't you have clients? And you're going to be focusing on the negative. So I love that you bring up that point, because how you state the question is so important. So just really pay attention to that. I don't know if you have any tips on that, but that was a big thing that came up at that event that we met at.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm always managing my internal self-talk, and I just did a podcast episode on this, and you know, the questions that come up, because they totally guide our lives. And most of the time it goes on below conscious awareness, right? So I think just taking control of that internal dialogue, consciously asking questions. And I have note cards all over the place with questions that serve me. And so I'm like, I have pre-prepared them so I don't have to default to, you know, limiting questions, if you will.
Great idea. I love that idea. I may steal that with these note cards with these good questions. My old primary question before I went to Date with Destiny, your primary question is kind of that question that you're always asking yourself was, how can I be better? But what I realized by asking that question is it kind of assumed that there was something wrong with me. And when I did do something good, instead of celebrating and being like, yeah, I'm a badass, I was like, oh, how can I be better? What can I do better? How can I do this better? And so I loved changing my question. And my new question is, how can I more fully share and enjoy the light and love that is within me and all around me? And it just allows me to live from that positive viewpoint and look for the good things in life and how I can help people and celebrate when I do.
It's beautiful. And it presupposes that you're already living from there, right?
Yeah.
And also when you ask that question, your first question, how can I be better? It's never enough. So no matter what you do, you're always going to feel it's never enough, because that's the question you're asking yourself. And mine used to be, how can I get attention? How can I be significant? And now it's, how can I serve with even more love and charisma?
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, like it's
Love
a total
that.
life, right? Okay, so people that are working with you, you're teaching them how to tap into this intuition, how to speak from that and teach from that, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a story about someone that you've worked with who really found their message, who was able to tap into that, you know, transform their lives in some way.
Oh my gosh, there's so many different experiences, but one that comes to mind that was just a beautiful transformation. I actually had this, and it's a story about intuition too, but I had this lady who she reached out to me on Facebook probably like a year and a half ago. And she asked about being on my radio show. And I remember seeing it, but I get a lot of messages. I didn't really answer it. And all of a sudden, like 6 or 8 months later, her name came to my mind, and I reached out to her. I was looking for guests for my radio show. I said, are you still interested in being on the radio show? I'd love to have a phone call with you and see if it would be a right fit. And I get on the phone with her, and she's just a beautiful lady. She also is from a small town in Idaho, actually not too far away from where I used to live, but I didn't know her when I lived there. And she'd been following me on my radio show for a while. It turned out that just the day before on her vision board, she put a picture of representing her being on my radio show. You know, I didn't even know this. And I just, her name came to my mind. So that's part of the power of like that intention, right? And so I called her, we had this beautiful interview, and I said, I'd love to have you on my show, but let's do some media training first. And she ended up hiring me to do that. And she just had this beautiful message. She has a beautiful message about families. She's a mother of 7 children. She ran for political office in Idaho. She's a huge advocate for families. And so I was able to work with her to develop this message. And of course, she was on the show. She did a great job. And shortly thereafter, I had someone reach out to me looking for speakers for a big event in Burbank, California. I was helping to put the event on. We had like A-list celebrities coming, some major speakers. Les Brown was there, you know, Colin Farrell, Marianne Williamson, Jeff Hoffman, the founder of Priceline. And she said, I really want to speak there. So we were able to get her a speaking spot there. And this was the moment. I remember I was backstage because I'd just gotten her on stage. And I was watching behind stage as she delivered this message. And then as the audience gave her a standing ovation. Now, this was just before Les Brown stood up to speak. Now, Les Brown happened to be her hero. She was just amazed by Les Brown. And so she got this standing ovation. People were just absolutely in tears. And I just remember that moment of when I first reached out to her, and here she was just having this desire to get out to the world, having this desire to work with people. And it was just beautiful to help her articulate and state her message in a way that would reach so many people. Now, the best part was after the whole event, we got back some of the statistics and the ratings, and she was actually rated as one of the highest amateur speakers at that event. So it was just a beautiful moment where I felt so fulfilled working with someone and helping them impact more people, because I had been there. I'd been in that place where I felt like I was the world's best kept secret, and like I had this amazing message, but who was there to listen to it? How could I reach the world? And to help her do that was just really special to me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love the idea of, you know, she had this intention, right? And I'm a big, you know, what I teach is, I call it my antenna theory. And we send out like radio waves of our intentions. And you had this thought, right? And like, then your paths cross, and she gets to speak in front of, you know, before Les Brown, because she had started to attract those things into her life. And so I think that intention is so powerful, because, you know, we're connected to everything. And so we can influence everything with our thoughts, with our intentions, with the questions we ask ourselves. And so we begin to attract from a totally different place when we can take control of that, right?
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And she's gone on now. She's actually appears regularly on my radio show doing the Family First segment. And she's come to several of the masterminds and different retreats that I've held throughout the past year and a half, and has met and made so many amazing connections, and just continues to grow and impact a lot more people with her message. So I love that.
That's awesome. So you're doing events around the world, right? Let's talk about your mastermind group a little bit.
Yeah. So I do what is called Legendary Inner Circle. So we do masterminds. We do like 3-day high-end masterminds. It's where I met Rock, who introduced us, with people who are influencers, people who are looking to connect with other people that are making a big impact in the world. And then we also do these exotic retreats where we go to different parts of the country. So we're actually I'll be in Costa Rica doing a relationship retreat next week. I'll be in Nepal in March doing a spiritual retreat. But most people go on vacation to unplug. These are really vacations to plug in to your higher self, and to plug into your spirituality in Nepal, to plug into that highest and greatest relationship self in Costa Rica. We've got a trip planned to Thailand coming up this fall. So it's just beautiful to be able to travel around the world with people who are intentionally making a difference and have that high vibration frequency. And then of course there's the quote that says, you are the sum total of the people that you hang around. I'm totally paraphrasing on that, but you become like the people that you spend time with. And to be able to travel and go around the world, and also to do the 3-day masterminds with people that are just that high vibrational frequency. Everybody's just elevated in those groups. So it's just a beautiful experience.
It's so true who you spend time with, you know, because you get into rapport with the people you're with. We want to connect. And so if someone's in a low state, you're just going to naturally get into rapport with them. And so I make it such a point to hang out with high vibe people because I want to be in rapport with them. I want to steal their thought patterns, right? And tune into their vibration is the way I look at it. And that's why I spend so much time with rock and get people like you on my show, because I want to tune into that. So at these events, and I'm sure I've been to, some similar stuff, but tell me a little bit about like what happens kind of energetically, like, cause I know there's always stuff that happens and the synchronicities and building rapport with people. So talk about some of those spiritual connections and transformations that happen.
Oh, wow. There's so many. One of the things that we really strive for in these events, so we also do 3-day bigger events that are breakthrough events, is helping people to really figure out and step out into their highest and best self. So there's usually some breakthroughs that need to happen. Some old stories that need to be released. And even with people that are having massive success, there's always things that pop up, right? I think sometimes we look at people and we think, well, they're successful, so they don't have any problems. And it's just not true. It's just that they usually understand how to solve those problems and put themselves in situations and environments where they have the support that they need to be able to move on quickly from them. So during the masterminds, one of the first things that we do, and also during our retreats, is we help people to be able to break down those walls. We have some amazing connection experiences that allows people to step out of that perfectionism, that allows people to take off the mask and say, here I am, this is all of me. And it's a beautiful experience because I think one of the things that we tend to do is we step into this perfectionism mode, right? Especially as coaches or as mentors or as speakers, we feel like, wow, we have to look a certain way or be a certain way in order for people to really like us. And when we just take off that mask, we just are allowed to bare our souls to the world, then usually just beautiful things happen and people start opening up and they tap into that deeper, more powerful versions of them. So a lot of it's about just releasing the negative, taking off the mask and stepping into that highest self.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned something about our problems, right? And everybody has problems. I don't care what level of success you're at. There's always a problem because we're always growing, and problems are how we grow. So being able to have the mindset of, okay, this is a problem that I'm going to grow from. What can I learn from it? How can I set my intention? What layer am I meant to shed in order to overcome this problem, right?
Well, and let me reframe that just a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think people think, well, I'm always going to have problems. Well, why do you have problems? Well, especially if you're in growth, you're going to hit resistance. It's just like that caterpillar turning into a butterfly, having to push out of the cocoon, right? Just like that chicken hatching from the egg, having to push out. If you are going to grow, you will experience resistance. If you're okay with not growing, if you want to be totally comfortable, you may have problems. And you may saw things pop up, but it's going to be a lot easier, I'm telling you right now. But if you want to grow, and if you want to impact the world, and if you want to step into that highest and best version of yourself, as you grow, you will reach resistance along the way. And those are the problems that you're talking about. So naturally, people who are on this trajectory of growth, and I told you about my experience where I had this just massive amount of growth in such a short period of time, this wall after wall after wall after wall, because those walls are always there, but we don't hit them until we start growing forward.
Yes.
And so it's learning how to handle those.
And so every time you hit a wall, you're setting an intention and creating a question, right?
Yep. Every single time.
And that's how you grow quickly, because you just hit one wall to the other and you just like taking steps up. You're just constantly moving through them.
Yeah, exactly. And here's why else it's really important to be in mastermind environments or groups of people that are really high vibe, is because guess what? They've hit along their way, walls. And so there's two ways you can learn. You can learn by counsel or you can learn by consequence. When you hit those walls, you can learn by counsel or you can learn by consequence. I don't know about you, but I would much rather learn by counsel, much rather surround myself with people who've dealt with those kind of problems, who have hit those kind of walls, and learn how they've handled them. And so that I can accelerate and get through that even quicker.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people need both. So they'll get the counsel and then they'll still go make the same mistake. And they'll be like, oh, that's what that guy was talking about. That's
true. We've all done it. We've all done it.
Now it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So that's some of the patterns that I see, but it's always good to be around those people that have been through the problems and challenges that you have to be able to step through them, right? So tell us, what's next for you? What's your how are you continuing on? What's your big vision for your future?
Oh, well, thank you so much for asking. Well, this year we're just continuing to grow our legendary inner circle and our family. I'm also continuing to grow the Speakers Coalition. So again, the Speakers Coalition is just for groups of just inspired speakers that want to make a greater impact on the world. The legendary inner circle are for those people that are in the Speakers Coalition, or people that even aren't speakers, but that just want to hang out with amazing high vibe tribe of influencers to come and travel around the world and have different experiences, deep diving with other amazing influencers, and experience that accelerated growth, and have a whole lot of fun too. That's the other part of that.
That's important. We learn so much faster when we're in a playful, fun state, don't we?
Oh, it's so true.
So
true.
how can people find?
So much fun.
Yeah. How can people find out more about this?
Yeah, so speakerscoalition.com. That's speakerscoalition.com. If you're a speaker, if you're an influencer, and you're wanting to reach more people, you're wanting to make more connections and have the tools that you need to move forward in your life and accelerate, there's actually a place on there where you can apply to be a member of the Speakers Coalition. Our coaches will reach out to you. It is an application process and it's an interview process. And I'm picky about who joins that because they need to be high vibe people who are impacting the world in a positive way. And then the best way to find out about our legendary programs, again, it's an application process, it's an inner circle, but the best way to start is go to legendaryseminar.com, where we have our intensives coming up. So you can look there. We've got one coming up in April and one coming up in June that you can find out more about.
Okay, great. And we'll put those links in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
So yeah, I guess tell us anywhere else that we can find you. Your book is, I'm guessing, all on Amazon and online. Right?
Yeah, Soul Intuition. My radio show Spotlight, the Allison H. Larsen Show on Voice America. If you're down in Southern California, you can get to my show Spotlight on cable TV down there. So yeah, just Google me, Allison H. Larsen. Bunch of stuff will pop up, and would love to have you in my world and find out more about what you're doing if you are an inspired person that's wanting to make a difference and a greater impact. Again, I just love hanging around people that are making a difference and connecting people. That's my other superpower, is connection. I make amazing connections between people that will allow them to accelerate their growth and reach more people.
Yeah, and I've started being very conscious of the connection, how to connect people, without expecting anything in return. And it's already, it pays huge dividends when you do that. So
yeah, it's one of my favorite things in the world.
Yeah, it's a great skill to have. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I definitely learned a lot and kind of got reintroduced to being more mindful of my intentions, because that's where you tap into the intuition. So I think that alone was worth it, but it was amazing having you on here. We'll put all the links in the show notes.
Thank you. And you're coming on my radio show, right?
Let's do it. I'm in.
Okay. We'll switch. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. My pleasure.